Welcome to another episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we bring together top tech leaders from across the globe to help us with their insights and expertise in how we can grow our businesses and grow our careers. My name is Gary Lafferty. I am the CEO and founder of the Growth Focus Partnership. And today I have the pleasure of welcoming my guest, Jason Robinson from Auspex Labs. So without further ado, Jason, why don't I just pass the baton over to you and get you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you started and where you are today in tech.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Jason Robinson. I'm founder and CEO of Auspex Labs, and I've been on a journey of tech for the last 30 plus years. I really started off running bulletin boards out of my bedroom in high school, where I learned basically everything I need to know about security, which is only allow people to do the things that they need to do and nothing else. From there, went to college, ran out of money, joined the Navy, was an avionics technician, and probably one of the coolest things I learned in the Navy was kind of the process for troubleshooting, which I've used throughout my career for solving from very small problems to huge problems in tech. After the Navy, I went and started working in IT for a manufacturing company who was doing everything from desktop support to network engineering and some software development. And it was a really interesting place because their focus wasn't tech. It wasn't, and they didn't really view technology as a core part of their business, even though it was quickly becoming one, and there was all sorts of friction around that, and was on a very small team for a fairly large shop. Ended up leaving there and going to financial services, where it was completely the opposite. The company was wholly focused on using technology to reduce and manage their costs, and was really willing to invest in it to create value for their company. From there, I was recruited to my first startup in Northern Virginia, where I've been for the last 15 years. As startups go, it was an interesting ride. It didn't last very long. And I moved into doing defense work and really kind of expanded out HPC and working with the intelligence agencies. From there, I ended up moving into working for a couple of vendors, same space, but I ended up at Brocade Communications, supporting their software networking capabilities, and was really inspired by some of like the network function virtualization and SDN, and really started thinking about what really became Auspex Observatory, our key product. In 2017, Brocade was acquired by Broadcom, and the pieces that I was working with all went to AT&T. I wasn't needed anymore, but I got a good-sized check and went and started a services company. I learned a lot about how to run the business and how to acquire talent and how to manage the talent and how to build product. And after about a year and a half of that, I decided to build product and started Auspex Labs because my previous company just wasn't set up for that. And we built Auspex Observatory. We were part of the Mach 37 accelerator, and we've been trying to sell product for the last 5 years to varying degrees of success.
Oh, fantastic! I mean, that is such a varied career that going through from that, and no doubt you've learned an awful lot from that, from the military as well, from the armed forces to the securities to where you are. What was the draw to the security aspect? You know, you said right from the very beginning you learned a lot about security and the basics of it.
So security has been a part of my career the entire time. Either working in financial services where people want the data, automotive manufacturing where we had OT systems on the IT network and it was a safety issue, And then everything in defense, security is first and foremost topic. The problem is about 15 years ago, there became this divergence between cybersecurity and IT being the same domain, and they broke out into separate domains. And about 10 years ago, I was really questioning why we were doing this. And a lot of it came down to the IT teams were not getting the cybersecurity work done, so they decided to go, here's a special cybersecurity team to do the cybersecurity work. The problem that I'm seeing is that a lot of the cybersecurity people, especially the new ones, they don't have the context for the work that they're doing, so they're just checking boxes and following best practices and just doing what they think they're supposed to be doing, but without any context, they don't really understand how what they're doing isn't necessarily the best approach, and that's reflected in the metrics. So time to detection is over 180 days, time to remediation is over 60 days. So when someone is breached, it's taking 240 days or more to fix the problem. And the average cost of that problem is like $34,000 a day. So it can be millions of dollars before you fix the problem that could have been resolved up front.
Yeah.
So my product is really focused on shortening the detection time, because I think the detection time is something that is addressable by software, whereas the prevention should be able to be addressed through controls and systems and implementation. And any product that's talking about preventing it, that's not a firewall or like an EDR EDR, they're talking out of school. They're making stuff up. The detection side, there's really good products in that space, but the problem is for those products is they're very expensive and they're very complex to use, and it's very columnar data that only the best people in the industry can use. My thought was that there needs to be tools that anyone can use. So, like my stepfather, who's the most technically incapable person, was able to use my platform to go, hey, this is probably something that should be looked at. And like, yes, that is absolutely something to be looked at. And he was able to ignore all the rest of what was going on in the network that I presented him. So the tool can be used by regular IT people to identify where there's threats on their network without having very expensive cybersecurity people or a formal SOC or any of the other really complicated, really expensive tools that are being advertised to solve this problem.
Gotcha. So you let's start back a little bit, because what I was really intrigued about is when you said is that people today and your competition per se, they're not working with the complete context that they have, that they're working on, as you say, checkboxes and things like that. Can you explain a little bit deeper for us what you mean by they don't have the complete context in order to do their job better than they currently do it?
Sure. So in every industry, there's a standard. So like in finance, it's PCI DSS, and defense, it's NIST 800, 171. And they go, here are the controls. And they'll list anywhere from 150 to 1,700 controls that need to be implemented to have a secure environment. And what they do is the current cybersecurity people are mostly going through and going, okay, control number 1 through 150 is been implemented. And great, that probably keeps 90% of your problems at bay. But without the greater context of how is the application under those controls actually working, how are these systems actually tied together, that's mostly missing from the current crop of cybersecurity people. A lot of the older cybersecurity people, they're IT people, and they go, okay, well, this application's talking to this database in this way, and this database is being replicated in this way, and this control is relevant, this control is not relevant, or this control is insufficient for this system, and the control being insufficient is the real problem that isn't being met of how do you keep the context for these larger systems and more complicated systems in check, and how do you secure them? And most of the new cybersecurity people coming out of colleges or coming out of boot camps, they just don't understand the underlying systems. I take on a number of interns every year. I had one brilliant woman that was going through major universities' cybersecurity program. She was right at the end of it, and we started talking about SQL. And she understood how to do SQL injections and understood what SQL injections were. She also had no idea what SQL really was, and couldn't work with any of actual SQL code or queries. And that's just kind of a reflection of what this larger problem is, that, okay, she understands what the attack is, but doesn't understand the context of the attack.
Yeah, I mean, I find that fascinating, and just listening to you on this, and it like you said, the old school guys like yourself and the others, the sort of the pre-separation between IT and cybersecurity have, number one, the base. It's almost like you have your medical doctor and then your specialist surgeons. It's almost like they're going to surgeon boot camp without actually knowing and having their medical degree. They understand it, but they don't know how to integrate it all together.
Yes, and as long as industry is saying, hey, we need like 3 million cybersecurity people, the colleges are like, okay, well, this is how we help these kids become successful, is to get them into that space. But what industry really wants is someone with 3, 5, 10 years of IT experience, and then the specialized cybersecurity training on top of it. And that's just not how our system currently works.
So what's going to be the detriment of the industry? What's going to happen to that if people don't because people don't know what they don't know, and if you've got this great big band of, let's call them the new wave of cybersecurity coming in and not really understand it, they're almost working on luck. We'll just hope that it doesn't get anything more complicated than what we know. Yet people like yourself knows, well, hold on, there's a big foundation here that you need to know. But these guys don't know it. So if these guys don't know it, is it also a case that the market out there doesn't know it either, and they're just hoping for the best?
Yeah, it's quite likely. So people are starting to build out their SOCs, and they go, okay, we take people out of college and we put them in tier 1 of our SOC. And then there's other companies who are like, no, we're automating all that tier 1 activity. So now, where are these people going to be trained? We're seeing the same problem in software development of, well, we can hire 5 junior developers, or we can have 1 mid-level developer and give them an LLM and write all the code that the junior people would write. Well, that means that in the future, we're going to have a problem where we just don't have any of those mid-level developers. And as those mid-level people become senior, there becomes less and less opportunity for the new developers coming in, and that's going to be its own problem. So it's not that the large language models are going to replace the existing developers. It's going to be a roadblock to future developers. Yeah. And it's kind of this thing that is a societal issue, which is we have been focused on efficiency over robustness or resiliency for 40 years. And at any point that we can make something more efficient, we do, often at the expense of the resiliency of the system.
Yeah, totally, and that's just being replicated over and over within the industry. And without mentioning any names, one of the massive players in the tech world has not actually recruited any juniors into their industry for the last 3 years now, which means there is no one there to promote, no one there to take the space and the place of these experienced people as and when they are either retired or forced out or whatever the case may be. So they're creating this big hole and this big gap within the knowledge
Absolutely.
industry. of this
And
particular niche.
cybersecurity is suffering from a lot of the same problem, where all the low hanging fruit is being automated, and there's and because we have people with these brand new shiny bachelor's degrees in cybersecurity or cybersecurity engineering, um, they're not getting the jobs that they need to learn and grow their career. They're not ending up in conventional IT, so they're not learning the context of it. And we're ending up with more older people at like tier 3 SOC analysts and SOC engineers that are very, very expensive and are increasingly not providing the value that they once were.
No, and that's going to hurt the industry somewhere along the line, because there's just not that people were going for cost and efficiency, like you said, but not necessarily the experience, which will really help them. So it's almost like putting a very bad plaster on a cut without actually delving into the wound itself. So this brings me on to the next great question for you, Jason, and is this: the whole industry works on discovery. Okay, when they go into a particular client, or whoever that client may be, they pride themselves on discovery. But surely there must be a challenge if you don't know the questions to ask. How can you do a deep dive discovery if you don't know what you're meant to be asking?
Well, and that is a challenge. On my side, I'm CEO and the sales engineer, so I'm the one that starts asking the questions of how are you keeping your systems, or how are you keeping your environment secure? And it's like, well, we have this great firewall, and we have this guy that looks at the system, and between them we think we're secure. Like, okay, what do you do if you become not secure? And like, we don't know. So what are your regular IT people doing to keep things secure? Well, they're patching things. That's great. But do they have any visibility? And the answer is often no, because the tools are too expensive, the tools are untrustworthy, whatever the reasons are. So one guy has visibility, one group is patching things, and they have a firewall that they're really dependent on, but that doesn't keep that one person in accounting that clicks on every single link that they receive an email from getting their system corrupted.
Yeah, so this actually is a fascinating topic, because it actually leads me into this next question really for you, is that as you say, as the founder and as the lead sales engineer, and certainly the insights within the industry that I have between my clients and the people I'm interviewing is that we still very much founder-led sales, founder-led marketing. When it comes to the companies, between 1 million and even up to 15 million, we're still founder-led from that. Where do you sit with regards to the ease of being able to attract high quality marketing team members, or indeed engineers, when you quite rightly said you've got interns coming in, but how hard or easy is it to find good quality team members for your company today, bearing in mind they're not coming with the full package of experience that they used to require?
So on my side, for Auspex Labs, on the engineering side, what I really focus on is finding enthusiastic people who are interested in learning and fit well with the company, and working with the interns allows me to find people that fit. And one of the things that the state of Virginia is doing is they have a thing called the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative. Virginia is focused on becoming the number one entity for cybersecurity in the world.
Oh, okay.
And they have a number of programs that we support through CCI to help train people. So they have one that is called Fast Forward, where they give people like a 7-week cybersecurity boot camp, and it's a little bit of cybersecurity, a little bit of programming, a little bit of IT ops, and then 12 weeks of time at a company as an apprentice. And we would definitely support that, and we recruit out of that pool. Not and so far we haven't actually pulled cybersecurity or people to do cybersecurity work. We've pulled people out to do like design and sales work because we now have sales and design people that have a basic understanding of IT, which makes them absolute unicorns as opposed to finding a designer. That's easy. Finding a
Yeah.
designer that understands the cybersecurity workflows is basically impossible.
Mm.
Finding a junior salesperson that has a understanding of IT, basically impossible. But out of this program, it's taking people from all different walks and giving them that training, and then I get a handful of them for like 12 weeks, and I can figure out, are they going to fit? Are they going to work? Are they someone that can really help my company? Are they providing a unique skill set that we don't have? And
Mm.
then I can hire those people.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's what they're also getting in that 12 weeks, your experience as well, the experience that, as you say, from the SOC 3s that they're not getting in college, they're not getting out there in the real world, they're getting from people like you and getting those experiences, which puts them above it, most of their competition.
there's another program that's through the universities, which is experimental learning, where they basically do paid internships through with cybersecurity startups, and it's people out of the computer science and cybersecurity engineering programs that can come and work with us for an entire term, and I can put them on projects, and they're really some of the best at the college or at the university level, and I can have them work on very complex things and figure out, is this what they really want to do, and talk with them about their careers and kind of the challenges that they're going to face, and help them steer their education so they can be more successful after they leave the university. And I keep in touch with a number of them, and they're all doing actually quite well for the ones that have gotten out of university. Um,
Mm.
so um, so that's actually where I've been pulling a lot of my talent from. I also spent 7 years working for vendors, Data Direct Networks, Brocade Communications, and I have access to all the salespeople in the world. If I had the funding for a salesperson, I can get A-class talent just out of my network.
Mm, mm. Yeah, so you've got them there. It's just getting it's getting the funding for them in order to do so from there.
Yes.
Well, I think it's fantastic listening to the state of not what the state is doing for the industry and where it wants to go with that. And that is almost like if they're choosing their niche, like you say, to be the best in cybersecurity in the world from that. So what would you say? I mean, that's a really good thing. But let's also, we always know that for every pro, there's going to be a con to it. What would you say is happening in the marketplace, specifically in the cybersecurity fields, that is making the landscape more challenging to run a business in?
So the larger challenge is kind of the collapse of the IT space from a career perspective. So 2022, there was about 270-ish thousand new tech jobs. In 2023, there were 700. Last time I looked at the numbers, we were down about 170,000, and I suspect that we're going to end the year around negative 250,000.
Mm.
So if I make a hint that I'm looking to hire someone, I'll end up with 100 resumes even before I even make any kind of posting.
Yeah.
Just make a hint of it, and my DMs fill up with resumes. My email fills with resumes. It's just
And what would you put that down to? Because obviously going negative 250,000 is an awful lot within an industry, within one particular industry. What's happened to these jobs? Is it because of AI now? Is it because of the dumbification of the lower levels? What would you put that down to?
I put it down almost entirely to higher interest rates. The very low interest rates allowed companies to really take risks and invest in building internal projects and building new products and revamping products. And the interest rates were low enough that they could borrow money to develop these things. And now the interest rates are too high to take those risks. So they're not. So there's no net new work that isn't absolutely necessary to the business, and so they don't need the people.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That really so people are tightening their belts within the industry,
Yeah.
and as you say, if it's not absolutely necessary, then let's put the employment freeze on, let's put the team building freeze on, and let's deal with what we've got until another day. Sort of kicking the can down the road, as it were.
And they're able to mitigate some of that using AI and automation and other pieces, but it's going to create holes in these organizations that are going to be really hard to fill, because why do we need a junior programmer when we have Bob, who's increased his low-end work 10x using LLMs?
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose there's going to be a lot of companies as well that don't want to have a full bench, and with regards to, they don't want to keep the people on the bench unless they know there's work for them that they can actually utilize them, because they couldn't afford necessarily to keep paying someone that's on a bench, albeit temporarily. So with that being said, and that's again a nice little segue into it. You've got the staffing issue or the challenging issue, which really isn't an issue until it actually happens. Until it really affects us, we're okay at the moment. We don't have to take anyone on. Let's talk about the other side of it, is where I say, yes, I've got the team, I've got that, but now I need to go out there and differentiate myself as a company and get work. What are the challenges that you are seeing within the marketplace today that's making it harder to get seen amongst all the noise, especially in a crowded place like cybersecurity?
So the first challenge that we had, that we're now mostly on the other side of it, is we had to demonstrate that we weren't basically a Russian or Chinese front trying to get access to our potential customers' data. We seem to have gotten past that, and now there's just the marketing environment has changed so radically just in the last couple of years that the people with experience in that space are struggling, and we just haven't had success navigating the new realities of the environment. So like pay-per-click used to be a very successful approach to getting visibility, but Google's basically killed it just due to choices that they've made. Twitter has become its own problem, or X, or whatever it is. So we're kind of like, for like paid marketing that's not very boutique, it's like Reddit is about the extent of the choices that we have. And Reddit has its own issues of, if you advertise with Reddit, you quickly end up with bullies. It hasn't been a problem for us, but I've seen it in some of our peers of someone going, hey, here's our cool security tool, and then they're on kind of the wrong side of being attacked in various ways. So it's the whole business development process is very weird right now, and that's probably the biggest problem that we're currently having, is navigating that space.
Got you. So is it a case of getting in front of enough people, or is it you get in front of enough people, but like we talked about this before, before this particular episode, we talked about the difficulty of building trust out there. There's almost like we've got to pre-build that trust somewhere, somehow.
And simply going, hey, this is what we're doing, just isn't enough anymore. We have to demonstrate we're not secretly Russians, we're not secretly Chinese, we're not being funded by them. We've been here for 5 years. We're operating in the U.S. All of our development is in the U.S. And then we get into what's kind of radical claims of, we're not just Elastic with VirusTotal, which is 90% of the other companies in at my level right now are, well, Elastic and Virus Total.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it is a challenge to basically say that no, we're very serious about this. We've built a serious product, and we built it not entirely from scratch, but we built a lot of it from scratch.
Yeah. So you're. It almost seems a shame because you've got such a great product that you built and things like that's different to everybody else, but you're competing in the same pool and you're just being seen as everybody else when
Yes.
actually, you've got this thing and say, we're not like them. That's what all of them are like. But
Yeah.
we're this, we've got something special, and it just makes it harder and harder. So what kind of methods have you tried? Because there'll be people out there listening to this and watching this who go, Jason, I feel you. This is exactly what we're struggling in this, albeit not in cybersecurity. They might be in a different part of tech, but they'll be thinking, yes, that's exactly what the challenge is, because it's certainly from the insights I get that trying to build trust, what I call pre-trust, is getting harder and harder and harder. What kind of things and what steps have you taken to navigate that? As you said, I appreciate you're still in the navigating stage, but what kind of steps have you taken to try and stick your neck above the parapet a little bit more?
So we took a step back and really evaluated what we were doing and how it was going. And one of the things that we chose to do was really focus on in-person events wherever we can do them. So we're doing a number of events throughout Northern Virginia, and as we have travel opportunities, we're looking for in-person events in other locations. Meanwhile, I have a sales guy who's doing straight up inside sales, calling companies that we've selected, running down leads, qualifying customers, and doing very, very conventional, old school, straight up sales process.
Mm-mm. And I love that what you just said is doing old-fashioned stuff. So, yeah, one of the ways that I've always worked with in my businesses and when my clients' business is in-person events, doing as much events, getting them, because if they can see between your eyes and look in your eyes, you're automatically building that trust that you can't build with a screen or behind an email or behind a phone call or anything like that. So I'm a great advocate and a great believer in presenting well to build your business. But obviously, again, like you say, it's a case of sometimes you have to go and just dial for dollars and do the old school stuff that people aren't doing anymore, picking up the phone and talking to people and finding out what the challenges are.
And there are cultural issues with that. So the millennials, Gen Z, they don't want to answer their phone. They don't want to talk on their phone. Gen X, and the Boomers, we're happy to talk on the phone, and but getting people to answer the phone is one challenge. There's so much spam now that's getting through the filters that because of LLMs that most people aren't reading their email anymore either. So it's just getting in touch with people, which is why we go back to in-person events, collect business cards and go, hey, I was at this event with you on such and such day. We talked about X, Y, and Z. Can we have a follow-up call? And that seems to be about the only route now that we have for getting in touch with people. Sometimes people will answer their phone, but most of the people, they're not even answering their phone. Like a good solid no is a whole lot better than you're being sent to voicemail because we know that no one's checking their voicemail anymore.
Yeah, it's just that little number on the side of your phone. It just grows and grows and grows. You just don't get round to it, or you ignore it, and before you know it, you think, oh, that was a few days ago. It's too old now. I won't even bother. So you can see why people actually are doing that and not picking up their phone. And I've also noticed, like you quite rightly said, that when they're on the phone, they're usually distracted if they do answer their phone, and they're not really in the moment listening to you. So that is definitely one of the challenges of doing the phone stuff. So it's hard. We know it's hard out there. If you had to give yourself one piece of advice, Jason, looking back against your you've shared so much already, and I'm truly grateful for your time. But if you had to give yourself, looking to your younger self, looking at everything that you've learned so far about your career, about your business, about the challenges, how you're getting past them, what would be that one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
So the one piece that I would give, and I'm going to just box it into this particular company, is hyper focus on discovery before the product is finished, and really talk to people and try and find potential customers before the product is ready. And yeah, that's pretty much the big thing that we failed to do, and it resulted in significant rework and really slowed down the sales process afterwards. The product was probably about 95% done before we started any of our discovery. Some of our assumptions were just assumptions, and as we were talking to people, they were problems that I wanted solved, but they weren't problems that other people wanted solved. And really, it was, I should have spent more time listening to Steve Blank and getting away from my desk and talking to people about what their problems are, and it would have resulted in the product being a little bit different. We probably still would be not too far from where we are today, but we would have had more baked in sales at launch as opposed to trying to catch them up after.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that piece of advice more. That is an absolute fantastic piece of advice. There's this thing in tech of, build it and they will come. It's going to be brilliant. They're going to love it and stuff like that. And that just isn't true today. Getting out there, getting out of your head and finding out what the market actually wants. It seems long in the beginning, but you'll get it to market a lot quicker, a lot faster, and a lot more quickly to revenue if you just did that market bit at the beginning. So I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, Jason. So if people want to get hold of you, Jason, they're interested in more about your product with regarding cybersecurity and the differentiations, as you said, how can people get hold of you?
So we have our website, www.auspex-labs.com, AUSPEX. Email me, jason.robinson@auspex-labs.com. And I actually read my email most of the time. So I'll definitely get back to you. And yeah, that's how you get in touch with me.
Brilliant. Well, I'll make sure they're in the show notes below so that people can actually just do a one click and get straight through to you. So Great. All that leads me to say is, Jason, thank you very much for your time today and sharing your insights. I mean, the stuff you've shared with us today, very, very eye-opening. And I think at the end of the day, that if people can just begin to see that with more foundational work, they can actually have a really good career out of this, as opposed to just ticking off the service levels. There's more to do, but there's far more value there. So thank you very much, Jason, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on this episode with Jason Robinson. And again, if you've taken any one of his great insights today, make sure you comment below which ones you actually liked. Make sure you like and you subscribe. But more importantly, let's get Jason's insights and expertise out to as many people as possible so that they could benefit their businesses and their careers as well. And the best way to do that is to make sure you share this episode as well as the others in the podcast. So until next time, thank you very much for joining us. Jason, again, thank you for being such a great guest, and we shall speak to you all the very next time. Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.